Hi, thank you for joining me today. Today we're going to be taking a look at some of the additional features of the eDialog Designer. There are a lot of options and functions that you can choose to utilize, so I'm going to go a little bit in depth to tell you about what each of them actually do. So within a dialog, I'm under the dialogs, and I actually opened an existing dialog that I had. We have a lot of options in this upper portion of the dialog screen. Starting here on the left, we have On Submit Subject. Now, you do have the ability to subscribe to receive on-submit alerts, which means that every single time a person completes the form, anybody subscribed to the on-submits would receive an email. By default, it will say dialog completed, and then it will list the dialog name. Now, sometimes people get a little creative with their naming conventions, and they might do something like this with some numbers that make sense to nobody but them, and maybe an initial and some other stuff on the back end. Well, that's not very intuitive for the people receiving the subscriptions. What you can do is you can choose to change the subject. So instead of saying dialog completed with the dialog name, you can instead say something like new lead completed, contact us form. Gives a little bit more description. You're also able to use merge fields inside of the subject line. So if you are capturing information such as email, first name, last name, you could, instead of saying new lead, you could type in, let's go with the person's email. And it would say jamie.whited@salesfusion.com, completed the contact us form. For a list of the merge fields, simply click on the screen and it will show you all of the account fields, all of the contact fields, and of course the owner fields. Moving over here to the right, we're going to show you the visual modeler here at the end, because once I check this, I can't uncheck it, and I'd like to stay on the screen for just a little bit longer. The sync with external CRM basically tells the system that if you are auto-populating into the Sales Fusion CRM, and this box is checked, then we will automatically turn around and push it into your external CRM. Whether it be Sage, SalesLogic, Salesforce.com, doesn't matter. If it's unchecked, obviously the information will be retained in Sales Fusion until you choose to manually push it over. The next area here is in beta. It's called Dialog Pass-Through, and this is a neat feature that allows a person, if cookied, to pass through the first page of a dialog and be delivered straight to a subsequent page. A couple things on this is it will not work if you're directing them to a URL. They have to be going to a subsequent page hosted by Sales Fusion, like a thank you page, or a second page of questions. And the person has to be cookied, meaning if we don't detect a cookie, they cannot bypass the first page to get to the second page. How can this be used? Let's say that you want to do a little bit of progressive profiling. So instead of asking on every single dialog, first name, last name, email, and company, you instead already want to know that information, already have that information if the person is cookied. So in that case, they would skip the page one with those simple questions and go into maybe a second question page asking, what product are you interested in? When are you looking to purchase? How many licenses do you need to purchase? Again, giving you some additional information rather than what they've already given you. Again, this is in beta, so as you're testing it, if you come across anything, please feel free to email support@salesfusion.com and we'll be happy to discuss it with you. The next area down here is Expire Dialog. So obviously, this allows the system to come in here and immediately activate the dialog if the date comes. So when this is checked, it will render a little box and a time to the right. This is good for event-sensitive dialogs. So if you're doing it based on a webinar and it's on an absolute date and time, if you're doing this based on a lunch and learn or anything like that, you don't have to remember to come in here and turn off the registration. You simply set the date and time. When that date and time comes, the dialog will immediately become inactive. The person will be routed to an inactive page, which I'll show you how you can customize as well. We also have max seats. Max seats is, again, good for event-driven registration forms. This is where you want to say, I am only going to allow X number of people to register. With that, as soon as this limit is met, the dialog will immediately become inactive, again, preventing people from accessing the dialog and completing it. Let's go down to the inactive notice. Now I'm going to save these preferences real quick, and I'm also going to make it inactive. Now I'm going to show you what, by default, this is going to look like. So if I now try to access this dialog, it's going to open up a page, and it's not the prettiest thing ever. Simply says this page is no longer active. Thank you, SalesFusion Development, and then it will have a link to your website. Obviously, you might want to customize that a little bit more, especially if it would become inactive due to an expiration date or max seats limited. So in that case, right here, you can go to Inactive Notice, and you can choose to put in something a little different. So here, I may want to put in my logo, and I might want to say something like, this event is now closed. Click here for the online version. Okay? All I have to do is, again, hit Save and Stay. Dialog's been saved, and now when I click to launch it, it has my much cleaner, sharper looking version. Each dialog does have the ability to have its own inactive page. So if you're doing an event, you could do something like this. If you're doing a webinar and the webinar time's already passed, then you could specify it for the webinar. Get as creative as you want with this. Coming back over here, we also have some great little links down here, and I run through them very quickly when we're doing the basic dialogues, but I do want to spend just a little bit of time talking about them. We have the itty-bitty URL. Now the itty-bitty is for social sharing. If you want to share this dialog on your social media sites or give people the ability to share it on their social media sites, then the itty-bitty works fantastic. We do have a big, long URL that is automatically generated with dialogues, but then you add a prefix, you generate the itty-bitty, and it generates something short and sweet like this. You can see here's my little prefix I had. Simply appended it, 05-2011. Now what I can do with this itty-bitty is I simply go to the next tab over, which is our social networking. On the social networking, you can choose to use the dialog URL, you can choose to use the itty-bitty, or you can choose to use the itty-bitty VC, which is an even smaller URL. You enter a subject line, and then you say Generate Social Links. Once these have been activated, you have the ability to click directly to any one of these social networks to be able to post a link to your dialog. Click on Add to LinkedIn. It's going to ask for me to log in, so I'm going to enter my information real quick. Log in. And if my records matched, it would log me into my LinkedIn. I would be able to post it and see it directly on my LinkedIn page. As you're doing this, it's a very easy process to just go along these tabs as you're setting up your pages, you got your lead routing, you've tested it, hop to itty-bitty, hop to social networking. It takes about 2.5 minutes to add into all of these. And with that, you're giving, again, yourself some extra exposure and hoping for more click-through rates. Moving over a little bit more, you have a sharing image. Now, by default, if you looked at any Facebook or Twitter, when you use a URL, it will generate an image, a little thumbnail next to it. This is where you can tell the system that you want to take a snapshot of the skin on page 1, or you can choose to upload your own picture. So this was my skin in this particular dialog. I can remove it, change my skin, and take another snapshot. Or again, I can browse and use something completely different, maybe a customer's logo or a partner's logo, or if we're going to a trade show, maybe the trade show logo. Instead, still directing people to that dialog. We also have QR images. The QR image here is where you are taking the dialog URL, you're embedding it as a QR code, and then you can choose, of course, your pixel size. Click on Generate QR Code, and it generates it right here. Right-click and save the image. You can use these in email campaigns. People can scan QR codes from their computer. You can attach it to a direct mail piece. You can put it on chat skis. You can do anything that you want to do with these QR codes. Again, it's a unique, fun way to do this. It's a great way to also get yourself some social exposure. I was at a trade show this past weekend, and at the trade show, for you to get one of their free tchotchkes, you had to scan the QR code. You scanned the QR code, it took you to their Facebook page where you had to like them. So imagine all, and they had a really neat shot ski, but imagine all of the likes that you can get from a single trade show if you're requiring people to do that. And people are very apt to use the QR codes because they're fun, they're quick, they're easy, and it takes just a moment, rather than having to fill out a dialogue and capture information that way. I'm now going to go into the visual modeler. So once I check this, I can't uncheck it. So I'm going to go ahead and check the visual modeler. Okay, it says dialog saved, and now I can click here to launch the visual dialog designer. It's going to open up a Visio type interface. It's using Silverlight. It might take just a moment to load. And if you have not installed Silverlight, I would highly recommend installing it. We use a lot of reports and a lot of functions using that feature. Now you can see that it just gives you a little diagram. Looking here, I have my start page, I have my next page. If I wanted to do another page, I simply drag it out here. It asks me what the page title is going to be, so I'm going to call this page 3. Type in a description, submit button, I'm going to say submit. And it's the same options that you would have on a normal dialogue. Do you want to place in a trigger email? Do you want to map to CRM? Is this the final page? Would you like to auto-populate? Click Next. You can choose these options if you want to. You don't always have to choose a CAPTCHA. Click Next. And it takes you to creating new fields. Create. It's again asking you some basic information. What is the field name going to be? I'm going to call this one Product Interest. Do you want to save to the CRM? What type of field is it going to be? Is it related to an event management? Do you want to overwrite the value? We have display up here, which is where you can choose for it to be required or not required. You have all the same options that you have in a normal dialogue. And list is obviously where you would choose, we're interested in CRM, we're interested in e-marketing, or lead scoring. Add. And of course, we have our quick updates at the bottom. Once you're done, hit Save. And once you're done with the page, then you simply hit Save. It's created my page. Now what I need to do is I would draw my logic. So this one is going to be going here, and it's going to ask me how and why. Are there going to be any conditions? Do you want some advanced logic? So I'm going to say no logic. I don't need any conditions because I want everybody who submits page 1 to go to this page. Select Next. Are you going to tie in a trigger? Do you want to assign to a particular owner? Once you're done, hit Save. You can, again, move these around as much as you want. So if I wanted to move this one and drag it over here and rearrange it, I can do that. Again, this is great for people who are very, very visual. It's not moving for me, but if you're a visual person, then you can definitely play around with these. It also tends to go a little bit quicker than the normal dialogue way. You also have some options up here. That is to return to the dialogue. This one is to save it. It asks you save. This is to load it. And of course, you can export out to PDF. So if you need to send this over to approval for somebody, then you would simply click on that and save it to your desktop or to a folder. Once you're done, click on Return. You go back out. If I scroll down and I open up my page 3, this is where I can continue to do the skin. Now, I wasn't able to design the skin within the Microsoft, but here I'd come to the skin and start adding my content. It's the only thing that you're going to come to this page for. The logic, the questions, and the page properties will be set up when you're using the Visual Dialog Designer. The last thing that I want to show you is called a redirect alert. Redirect alert is a different type of dialogue that you can actually do. So I'm going to come back over here to select, and we're actually going to create a new dialogue. A redirect is a way to track as people are engaging with maybe an asset or something on your website, but without having to ask any questions. As a best practice, you should have forms on your website. You should be giving people plenty of opportunities to complete a form and be able to get cookied by the Sales Fusion system. But every now and then you may just want to have a free asset that you just want it sitting out there and you want people to engage with, but yet you want to know as people are engaging with it. That is what a redirect form does. It routes people through a blank ASPX page and delivers them to the URL specified. We're going to create one now. I'm going to put in today's date and call it training. Dialog type, you would need to choose a redirect form. Is this going to be active or inactive? And of course, do you want to expire the dialog, and what is the description? Now with the redirect form, you will be creating a classic dialog. So I'm going to choose classic, and then in the upper right-hand corner, I'm going to select create. Okay. Once it's done, it looks like a regular dialog, looks same options that we had. We have our page 1, so I'm going to open up page 1, and this is where the difference comes into play. With a redirect form, you're not going to have a skim, you're not going to have questions, and you're not going to have next page logic. You are honestly just redirecting them to a URL and tracking that they touched it. So we'll call this one Jamie's redirect. File location, where do you want them to go to? Again, this is nice to be able to track places that you cannot add our analytics code, PDFs, your Facebook page, any other areas that you want to direct people to, cookie them and still be able to know that they touched it. For my purpose, I'm just going to put in our website, and then I'll put in a description. So I'm just going to copy and paste Jamie's redirect. One of the additional features that you can do with a redirect is if the redirect is contained within an email campaign sent from Sales Fusion, you can also have the person enrolled into a trigger campaign without having to ask a single question. They click on a link, guess what? They now get dropped into a campaign. To do that, you would have to use a special parameter to tell the system, capture the email address, turn around, and let's use it inside the trigger so that we know who we're going to. That parameter is right here. It's and trigger email equals plus plus email plus plus, and it simply gets appended to the end of the dialog. I'll show you how that looks. And this is it. This is all you have to fill out. I hit save and return, and it takes me back out. If I wanted to add this to an email campaign and have a trigger campaign go out, I would go to my testing, and I would append my parameter here and grab the entire thing, and that's what I would hyperlink. Now let's go to test it out, and I'll show you what it does. So when I click on Click Here to Launch Dialog, it's routing me through, right now, the blank page, and it's going to be delivering me to the salesfusion.com website, which it just did. So in those couple seconds, it tracked that I clicked on it. It's going to track it in the web analytics. If it knows who I am, it'll even log it there. The way that it's going to look inside of the system is if I go to Web Forensics and I go to Tracker, you're going to be able to see your redirect. It actually appears on the analytics code. Okay, I am cross-cookie as this person. So if I look at pages, you'll be able to see that, well, that's my training one. Let me refresh. There we go. So we're going to show the pages detail. Here's Jamie's redirect, and then the information behind it. If you're not sure what this is, you can click on it, and you'll be able to see the page that the person was redirected to. So the page name is definitely important here as well because it appears in the analytics, and if you want to run custom reporting on your redirects, you would need to make sure that they're unique, so it's pulling just the ones that you want. Okay, so those are just some of the additional features of the dialogues, and we hope that you find a way to utilize them. We are creating them for purposes to make your efforts in marketing a little bit easier. As always, we do have our Learning Management Center where you can access our live training, our recorded videos, and much, much more. And then we also have our online help manual, which will help you if you need a quick reference. How do you create a redirect? What is a redirect? Well, thank you for joining me today, and I hope you have a great day.